I figured I'd be talking about Steven Universe at some point, whether it be a full-fledged review on the microfile assessment, or if it'd just be the subject of a commentary. However, I didn't expect to make one so soon, but Doodle Tones basically handed this to me on a silver platter, and then I watched the videos and realized what my life has become. An endless void of watching shitty videos so that I can waste my day covering them for YouTube. Then the sudden realization kicks in that this is my life now, and how many other things I could have been doing with my time, like going to the gym or finding some new hobbies. I could have hung out with friends or finally go to the clinic to have my abortion. So we're technically covering two videos today. The first is by a YouTuber named The Virtual Celebrity who made a response to Easy Peasy's video on Steven Universe. Easy Peasy's video can be best described as a review of the series, why the show was awful, why the fans are awful, why it's pushing leftist propaganda, and why the staff are awful people. The Virtual Celebrity, who I'll just be calling Virtual throughout this video, essentially responded by, well, not really responding to almost anything, and that begins to be a real problem throughout her video. So before it becomes confusing later on, I'll be covering extended clips from Easy Peasy's original video that Virtual does reference in hers, since there are times where she cannot be fucked to even discuss why Easy Peasy is wrong. Though I guess we're just gonna jump right on in before I spoil too much.
10 billion points for Griffin Puff!
There is a difference between being opinionated and just being.
Other people on the show are awful voice actors specifically because of the fact that they aren't voice actors at all. For example, Nicki Minaj, who's a singer, not a voice actress, but then again, Nicki's only on the show for one episode. Estelle, on the other hand, who's also a singer and not a voice actress, well, she voices one of the main fucking characters. Even more interestingly than that is the fact that the first two men on this list, after the voices of Steven and his dad, are just guys who work at the show's office, doing multiple voices, despite both of them not being voice actors and one of them just dating Rebecca Sugar. But somehow, thanks to nepotism and diversity hires, one little Joseph Goebbels managed to slip by and create a cartoon where 90% of the population is gay, and the symbolism is so broken it accidentally turns half the show's cast into rapists. We'll get to that, you'll see.
Yeah, I can't use the word I have in mind because at least 14% of y'all are minors. Now, I was just gonna go through this video point by point and counter all this person said fact by fact. But I know people have already done that in the comments for this video already. And it's almost a goddamn hour long. I have free time, but I don't have that much free time.
Now, I kind of had to cut off the video here so that I don't leave a whole 2-minute clip playing, but oh my god. You don't want to address the whole video point by point because you don't have a whole lot of free time, and because the comment section of his video is already doing that. Not everyone watching your video, my video, or even Easy's video will go to the comment section just to see people debunk his video. I believe I've said this in my Scoutfly videos, so I'll just say it here as well. The largest demographic of viewers that interact with your video are those who simply just watch the video. Not all of them will comment, and not all of them will rate the video, and in this case, some of them might not even go to the comment section of a completely different video at all. And hell, some of them may not want to go read dozens of comments to find an argument when they could just see another YouTuber do it in video form. It's more convenient and it makes your video much better. And I do get it. We're not all able to pump out a long video in a short amount of time. That's the reality of being an adult with responsibilities, and I get that you're not given all the free time in the world. Though I could try to give you a suggestion. One thing you could possibly do is cover what you consider to be the most standout points of his video, similar to what iDubbbz does with his Content Deputy videos. It doesn't add unnecessary length to your video, and you're still able to make a solid response. Almost like what you attempted to do here.
So instead, I'm just gonna say you are allowed to hate Steven Universe. You're allowed to say you hate it, everything it stands for, and you can hate the people who like it. But this...
One of them over the fact she drew one of the show's many morbidly obese characters is actually attractive.
This is just wrong. Now, I wanted to be angry. I wanted to yell, to insult, to degrade, and to attack. But what's the point? Although honestly, the dude is a bit of an idiot. But hey, shout out to someone having worse audio than me.
I feel like you could have started making your response much earlier than this. We've already seen quite a few clips from Easy's video being played that are very much worth dissecting or even just tackling very briefly. Considering we've already gotten past your intro and introductory statement, this would have been the best possible opportunity to hear your thoughts on these clips. Call it a nitpick, but if we're nearly 3 minutes into the video and we've already seen about 3 to 4 clips from the video that you're covering and you're not giving us any direct response response or anything of substance yet, then I just start to get very impatient.
Because let's not beat around the bush. The Steven Universe crew are a bunch of left-wing radicals. Fusion is a metaphor for sex, as the show's own creator admitted, and using it to insert political messaging into the show is basically an attempt at indoctrination of grade school children.
My brain is just collapsing in on itself from this horseshit. Is he saying it for shock factor, shock value, or whatever you guys, or what? I don't. I had to literally force myself to watch this shit till the end, and even after that I had to go back and download this utter piece of cancer onto my laptop to talk about it. And while I'm scripting this, I'm still putting off eating it, reading it. Sorry, I'm hungry. I'm putting off rewatching it.
Oh my god, I'm just gonna ignore that last bit since it really doesn't matter, but I do need a cutoff point or else this is just gonna go on forever. No, it was not a joke. It was quite literally a segment of his video where he claims that Steven Universe is propaganda targeted towards installing children with leftist ideals. I mean, it would be nice if you didn't cut out almost all of the context for this clip. You could have given a response to this, but oh well, I really can't expect any more from a video that's more bare bones than I am. Also, if you're wondering why I didn't play the extended clip from Easy Peasy's video, it's because we're about to get into that whole section here in just a moment, so you'll be able to see all the context there.
Now, I could label this guy a sexist, racist, elitist, all the itsists, but that would just make me no better than this person.
Oh, okay, so why did you do that in the description of your video then? Now that's pretty embarrassing, isn't it? Now, I would add a skip card here normally, but I'd rather do something else. You see, we're about 4 minutes into the video right now. The next segment I'll be skipping to later in her video is at 7 minutes and 8 seconds. That's 6 minutes of her video, and that last segment about propaganda was really the only direct attempt to reference an argument she's made in the video in question. I'm 2 pages into my script right now, and I'm having a hard time even finding a way to respond to both of these videos because there was quite literally no insight being given from Virtual. Everything she says after this point is about how she wants to change her minds, and then she goes into a brief discussion about how she doesn't want the hate levied against her for her gender or African heritage to change her. All of that is okay, and it does lead to some minuscule thing later on, and I'm glad that she has this mindset, but this really could have been condensed or even just omitted. So I'm gonna do what she hasn't done yet and respond to a clip she played from Easy's video from before. We'll be doing it a couple other times here so that I've got something else for you guys, but everything she skipped over has been a treasure chest of bullshit that really got under my skin. But we're gonna look into this little segment first where he talks about Steven Universe's voice actors.
As for the rest of the cast, most of them are passable, but others are either wrong for the characters that they're playing or just outright bad. Trying to figure out why that is, I looked at the cast page on Steven Universe Wiki, which I think lists them in order of importance, or maybe in order of most recently edited, which I'll tell you that 9 times out of 10 is actually more reliable than an order of importance list. Now, take a gander at the first page of this list and tell me if you notice anything. Anything at all. Come on, really activate those almonds. In case you haven't guessed it yet, you might notice now that aside from the voices of Steven and Greg, almost every other cast member on this list is a woman, usually a woman who isn't white. Now, I'm not saying that minority women can't act, it's just that when you look at something like this, it's hard not to come to the conclusion that the people on this list were hired based on sex and race rather than skill and talent, which would explain why they have so little of it.
I guess we could take a look at who exactly these actors play and their history to determine that, right? So why don't we just fucking do that? DEEDEE MAGNO Hall plays Pearl. While her list of television and film roles haven't been huge, she's been part of musical theater for quite a while, which is a perfect fit for a character like Pearl. She has the musical history and solid voice to back it up. Estelle plays Garnet, who admittedly is one of the weaker voice actresses in the show, like Easy Peasy mentions. All of this is purely subjective though she does have the musician's touch to aid her through some of her weaker performances. Michaela Dietz plays Amethyst, who doesn't have a huge catalog of credited roles in film or television either, but is well known for voicing the character of Riff on Barney and Friends. She is also listed as a singer. Jennifer Paz plays Lapis Lazuli, another actress who has her chops in musical theater. Susan Egan plays Rose Quartz, fucking Meg from Hercules. She's on Broadway. Grace Rolek, voice of Connie, she's been in these films and she's a singer. And these are all just just members of the most recurring characters in the show, most of which have had a history of being singers on stage, on television, or just being well-known recording artists, since this show really loves their songs. Like, I get that you said that most of them are passable, but to assume that they were picked mainly for their race and gender over their skill list is absurd. And as for the rest of these women on the list, their track record is mostly the same. Actresses with either low to fairly decent amounts of television and movie roles, musical theater credit, and some of them being songwriters and singers. The only possible exception being Shelby Rabara. I'm not too familiar enough with her work to know if she's a good singer or not, and her only song on the show really wasn't the best, though regardless of that, this is probably a solid career booster for her. For all of them. Also, holy shit dude, way to figure it out. They're mostly hiring them based on the fact that they're women on a show that has characters that are mostly women. Who would have fucking thunk it?
Think I'm wrong? Well, take into consideration the next fact. Some of the people on this list are notoriously bad. People like Mary Elizabeth McGillen, who's infamously bad for her voice acting.
And this is all just going off of a single IMDb list possibly made by some random user. Oh, and on that list, he put Mel Blanc as number 2, and he put D. Bradley Baker on there twice. Not super relevant, but just pointing out how using this list as your only example doesn't really build a case. Is she perfect? No, but even if she is considered extremely bad, could anyone at least give her the benefit of the doubt and assume she might be playing a fitting role here? She's playing Connie's mom.
It scares me that you can't talk to me. I need to know what's happening in your life. I need to step in when you're in over your head.
Any potential role could fit for anyone, even if they aren't usually giving a good performance. And even a good voice actor can be given a poor voice role and give a poor performance. This is just a flimsy excuse.
Ashley Birch, who only got into the voice acting industry through nepotism via her degenerate brother who secretly wants to sleep with her.
And this proves what about her voice acting career? That she got in because of her brother? I mean, we could at least look into her roles as the Rutile twins. I mean, I get the joke you were making, but when discussing notoriously bad voice actors, I'd love to hear you go into a bit more detail.
And Charlene Yee, who's so unbelievably bad that even the show's own fans admit this, and despite this, she voices 6 characters.
6 characters that are technically the same character to some degree. Since all types of gems have the same voice, she's technically playing 6 different characters, but just giving them different personalities, so she plays 6 different rubies. Also, I went to that Reddit post to see the reactions, and maybe 2 people fully agreed with this person. Not saying that this represents everyone's opinion, but using this example by only showing the header comment of a Reddit post as an example for the fans agreeing that she's bad? Like, could you not show us any more examples than this? How could you not be fucked to build a stronger case? This is a 45-minute long video.
10 million points for Griffin Puff!
Even more interestingly than that is the fact that the first 2 men on this list, after the voices of Steven and his dad, are just guys who work at the show's office, doing multiple voices, despite both of them not being voice actors and one of them just dating Rebecca Sugar.
That's ignoring the fact that they played very minor characters or just various background characters, because why the fuck would you want to spend even more money on actors to play unimportant background characters? Just use 2 guys at the office who can do it, especially if they're willing to. It's just easier and cheaper to do. So since that part's out of the way now, let's loop back and talk about the part where he discusses propaganda.
Now, don't get me wrong, I don't hate everything about the writing in Steven Universe. I actually enjoy some of the more adult themes. But then again, I'm an adult. The show's official target audience, on the other hand, is 8 to 12. And here's the biggest problem, because when you insert your views into something directed at people old enough to think for themselves, it's called entertainment. But when you do it with a show directed at children who are not able to think for themselves, it's called propaganda. You see, we keep morals in kids' shows in normal countries nice and simple because they're too simple-minded and will just believe anything you tell them. In normal countries, shows focus on teaching things like, don't steal, don't talk to strangers, don't shit in your dad's sock drawer. But in places like North Korea and the Middle East, kids shows teach kids things like Americans are pigs, beating your wife is okay, and the Jews faked the Holocaust. What we don't do in developed countries is allow a group of 20-year-old idiots who can't even write a basic story arc or keep their own metaphors consistent to make a propaganda film for toddlers. But somehow, Thanks to nepotism and diversity hires, one little Joseph Goebbels managed to slip by and create a cartoon where 90% of the population is gay, and the symbolism is so broken it accidentally turns half the show's cast into rapists. We'll get to that, you'll see. Because let's not beat around the bush. The Steven Universe crew are a bunch of left-wing radicals. Fusion is a metaphor for sex, as the show's own creator admitted, and using it to insert political messaging into the show is basically an attempt at indoctrination of grade school children.
Alrighty, so we're gonna work backwards a little bit, starting with that last point we just left off at. This part right here is a little interesting considering that your statement could be the answer as to why this isn't blatant propaganda as you're saying it is. While these creators do make implications about what the show's themes and metaphors actually mean, it is executed in a way that doesn't necessarily make it entirely clear. Otherwise, I feel like the show would not be aired on Cartoon Network, since at that point it'd just be a blatant socio-political animated series that would stick out like a sore thumb. On the surface, Fusion just looks like two people who combine to make another gem for battle purposes or simply because they love one another. Now, the homosexual stuff does play a role there, though implying that this is trying to push an LGBT propaganda piece by simply having same-sex characters fall in love is a bit absurd. Looking into the show a bit more, because I'm a fucking moron who doesn't always pick up on symbolism, nor do I follow feminism or social justice stuff out of pure disinterest, it seems that the elements of the show are not clearly there to push their mindset onto other people or even attempt to indoctrinate children. I'll try my best to explain myself as clearly as possible since this is such an easy topic to mess up, but I want to try my best. Now, earlier you played a clip of Squirrel and Hedgehog, a North Korean propaganda series for children. Let's compare that to Steven Universe for a second. In a similar line of reasoning that you brought up, Squirrel and Hedgehog is a children's show with more adult themes. Adults would understand it better than children and probably enjoy it more for that reason, since the message behind the show is entirely political. Certain species of animals represent countries, like the bear representing Soviet Russia and how the wolves represent the US. They're all stereotyped or exaggerated to send a message about North Korea's enemies while representing itself in a very positive way. That is propaganda at its finest, blatantly forcing political views to bend the minds of children. That is far different from what Steven Universe is doing. While you may not agree with the viewpoints of the staff, their overall goal is to present us with a show that pays homage to other genres of media, like fantasy and magical girl anime, and presenting us with a roster of powerful female protagonists trying to give women some positive representations of heroes to identify with. Additionally, they include themes of love, though explore different types of love. The biggest example being Garnet, since she's essentially a lesbian relationship, though the show presents Fusion in Garnet's perspective as a true connection between two people, being an act of love and understanding. When two gems fuse, they become like one being tied by the love and devotion that they have to one another. On top of the LGBT themes themselves, Rebecca Sugar herself even said that these themes don't exist to push some kind of viewpoint onto the viewer, but to explore themes of love that aren't usually expressed in the mainstream. Instead of telling the viewer to be a certain way or that another way is wrong, it introduces and explores certain types of relationships between characters and their dynamics, in an attempt to let those who might identify with these relationships witness it firsthand and possibly come to understand themselves better. But one of the biggest things for me is that, well, a lot of this is subtle enough to where it doesn't really get in the way. I didn't even notice most of this when I first started, minus the whole Garnet Fusion thing and even Pearl's love for Rose. But then again, their love isn't being presented to us or even children as a means to indoctrinate us with leftist ideals. They are still characters at the end of the day, and these feelings for each other are tied to them naturally. It's all set up in a way that makes sense, which is why I don't feel like this show is propaganda. I'm not someone who leans towards a lot of LGBT stuff or even feminist stuff, and I cannot stand being harassed about tolerance and acceptance. This show does not do that, well shy of one example that you do bring up eventually, being the fact that Ronaldo is depicted as being an MRA-type anti-feminist. I can't really argue against that since Ronaldo is still considered to be the worst character in the show by most, including myself, so that is a fair point to bring up. That was symbolism that, was a little too blatant. And now I suppose I should mention that if you're someone who doesn't like seeing these themes in a show, that's perfectly fine. I didn't say any of this to get you to feel that way. That's not what this video is about. This whole section itself is mostly just intending to offer a reason for why this isn't propaganda, because it isn't. Propaganda is intentionally trying to get you to follow a certain line of reasoning. But even then, having adult themes in a show doesn't instantly make it propaganda. Look at something like Teen Titans or even The Last Airbender, shows that have morals and messages that border past just being kind to others or being respectful, if we're going by your previous examples. Teen Titans has an episode dealing with racism. The Last Airbender handled some feminist themes in an episode, proving to a patriarchal society that women are more than capable of being warriors. These are themes that border past the simplicity of don't talk to strangers, just as well as some of the other adult themes in Steven Universe like abusive relationships and even Bismuth's moral dilemma of two wrongs not making a right. These don't exist to indoctrinate, they're great methods of teaching children critical thinking about certain issues. This guy is being racist to Starfire, Jasper is trying to get back with Lapis after she treated her terribly, Bismuth wants to straight up kill anyone who opposes her worldview. If I were a child and I were presented with these types of situations, it would weigh on my mind quite a bit and it would get me thinking about where I stand on these issues. Or, you know, some kids are just there to watch Garnet kick some ass. Or if you're like me, I just wanted to see more plot related stuff happen. I mean, I'm not exclusively here to see just a bunch of lesbians fight one another. If I did, I'd just go to Pornhub. I guess that's all I really have to say about that kind of stuff. Let's just get back to Virtual's video before I have a fucking meltdown.
10 million points for Griffin Puff!
Now, you might think that they're angry at her for looking and sounding like Harambe, but you'd be wrong, because even the Steven Universe fanbase realizes this is an accurate depiction of a lesbian. No, they were angry because this character murders people she disagrees with, but not for reasons you think. No, not because the show paints lesbians as dangerous and violent. No, they're angry because the moral of the episode was that murdering people you don't agree with is wrong. There is an alternative theory that this one is actually supposed to be black-coded, rather than gay-coded, but that doesn't make things much better either, considering that, again, she looks like a giant gorilla. And if you think she's black, then that sort of sets up a bit of a sort of scary trend here. After all, when Garnet and Amethyst, who are both considered black by the fanbase, fused together, the result was also a big, dangerous, violent gorilla who was voiced, no joke, by Nicki Minaj. And in a more recent incident, the Steven Universe crew published an art book with some unused character drawings.
Hate the show all you want. I'm not saying that's bad, but if you try to defend this person saying it's his freedom of speech or whatever bullcrap you're gonna pull out of your ass, then you have no right to hate Donald Trump. Because regardless of how you may feel towards him, I'd cut off my left boob in a heartbeat to have him as my president instead of the one my country has already. Corruption is a bitch and can ruin even the greatest of nations.
Oh my god, what did that even have to do with anything he just said? I've said it before and I'll say it again, responses like this are typically supposed to be giving us some sort of insight on why these videos are bad. I get that you don't always have to be directly to the point with everything you say, but we're 8.5 minutes into your video already and you haven't made a direct response yet. You haven't challenged anything or debunked anything, you're not giving us anything of substance. And as for you, Easy, while I'm not going to address the point about people thinking business murderous rage is a good thing since we all know that it's a pathetic thought process, let's look over this little part. Now, I hope there would be nothing wrong with Bismuth being physically masculine. While not correlating this with being both black and lesbian, she could very well just be a large character with combat experience, being the fact that she's a blacksmith and a skilled warrior. This isn't supposed to be some kind of standard set by the creators, and I get that you address that, but we can't continue to presume that this is the case, especially when you bring up Sugilite as the next example. Also, there is a legitimate reason for why Sugilite is the way she is. Since Sugilite is a fusion of 3 gems, Ruby, Sapphire, and Amethyst, her monstrous personality is a combination of all 3 personalities. While Sapphire is very reserved and patient, her personality was outshined by the aggressive and short-fused Ruby, as well as the impulsive and irresponsible Amethyst. These significantly overbearing characteristics and their negative traits end up creating a very unstable personality, something that will just pretty much go on a rampage and do whatever the fuck it wants. And considering that these 2 traits are so destructive, if they stay as Sugilite for too long, then there's no telling when they'll ever get back to their original selves. And the fact that both characters are played by black women, well, Sugilite is probably just a nice little cameo from a pop artist, while Bismuth's large stature could have fit well with a good actress like Uzoa Duba. And after that, she brings up the example of Concrete being a racist depiction, which Rebecca Sugar herself apologized for, so I don't think we quite need to go over that. Regardless, both of you have disappointed me worse than my own daughter. But unlike her, I can't tie either of you up to the radiator in my basement with a child leash, so I just have to keep watching this shit.
10 billion points for Griffin Puff!
And yet, the gems just let him get away with anything, allow him to do anything he wants, let him put everyone on Earth in mortal danger on selfish whims, and the only retribution he ever faces is when he realizes he fucked up and begins to cry, which he does in each and every episode, and then he's told by all the gems that he's done nothing wrong. The only 2 times in the show that gems actually punish him for something is one time when he's grounded for releasing a dangerous criminal who almost destroys the entire Earth in a tsunami, and then he's ungrounded 5 minutes later. And the second time he's grounded is when he's not allowed to watch TV anymore because it's needed for the sake of the plot, and then it's overturned a few episodes later anyway. No one ever tells him no.
Okay, hey, wait. I actually read about this. The reason the Crewniverse ungrounded Steven from watching TV was because kids in real life started stopping themselves from watching TV like Steven. I think Channel Frederator, my former overlords, mentioned it or something.
Oh lovely, nearly a minute and a half of Easy's video was played discussing why the gems are awful caretakers, how child services wouldn't stand for it, and why he's a spoiled brat that gets out of being grounded, and you only discussed the last point about being grounded, which means that you probably could have just cut out all that fluff that we didn't need to listen to. If that was everything you wanted to discuss, then you'd be better off just cutting the other minute of the clip that you played.
See, is fusion gay sex because they're all women, or is it technically not gay sex because they're all genderless? And if it's not gay sex, and Homeworld is persecuting gems who are of different kinds and views, is it actually interracial sex? Is this character who is persecuted by Homeworld for fusing with 6 other gems an attempt at promoting polygamy? Is this character a Muslim?
Allahu Akbar!
Okay, that was funny.
This is the comedy police! The joke's too funny! I'm not going back to jail!
On a larger scale, there's the issue that the plot never progresses anywhere and nothing is properly explained. Hundreds of episodes in and years in the making, many of the most basic aspects of this world, and the characters that live in it, are never fully made clear.
I'm sorry, have you met One Piece? Jay has stopped me from picking up watching this anime multiple times because he said there's just too many episodes. Even he who was watching it avidly dropped it and is unable to pick it back up because it's just too much, and apparently they still haven't reached the point. People who first picked up Attack on Titan just last year figured out what the hell was happening. That's 8 years, buddy. Forgive a show for building its world and actually truly keeping to its word for not having a single episode be filler.
What the fuck did any of that have to do with his point? He quite clearly presented a piece of criticism about how the show is about 4 to 5 seasons in, over 100 episodes, and not everything is crystal clear. Crystal. About the world, the lore, and even the story. I'd argue against it, but it's purely subjective, and I know some people are not fond of Steven Universe's approach to storytelling, and don't always enjoy sitting through episodes of fluff to get to the main story, so I can accept people not liking it for this reason. Your response? Well, mentioning One Piece and Attack on Titan, 2 completely different shows with 2 completely different styles, doesn't help. One Piece, from what I can tell, is almost entirely world building and adventuring, where the series just keeps on going and going within weekly chapter releases, and while I'm not too familiar with everything on Attack on Titan, I can best describe it as being the most grounded in comparison. It typically follows a standard narrative structure, while One Piece keeps moving on from one story to the next without really reaching the end at any point. Steven Universe drops hints about its lore and the world in small bursts, while some episodes just take time to handle character interactions and side plots, and the episode releases as of late have been significantly slowed down, especially as of the last 2 years. So the point can still stand. Easy's issue isn't that they're having single episodes with filler, but the fact that the show has been going on for this long, but some of the most important elements of this world have not been quite established in the way that they could be. It's a comment on the show's narrative speed in comparison to the airtime.
As I already said, the people who make the show are a bunch of radical left-wing invalids, ranging from Rebecca Sugar, who recently came out as bisexual, to a crowd of people who literally applauded pussy eating, and this guy, who's mad at himself for his body producing testosterone.
What? How? I'm I'm not even mad, just shocked. Now, I don't particularly like liberals, I fucking hate them, and I've never hid the fact that I'm terrified of lesbians. I suffered severe trauma induced upon me as a child because of one. But even despite all that, I'm the one saying a huge fat nope to this entire video. The person speaking in this video clearly hates women, black people, anyone with different sexual preferences or kinks, and he seriously despises fat people. Morbidly obese must be his favorite word or something.
Sarcasm and humor, Virtual. His comments, at least from what I gathered, were not meant to be taken too seriously. And can we loop back to what she said earlier?
Now, I could label this guy a sexist, racist, elitist, all the itsists, but that would just make me no better than this person.
It makes you no better to call him any of those labels, yet you still do it anyway? We're a little over halfway done with the video, and I feel like we should call James Cameron because the bar is already too low.
Now, I can assume the person speaking is male, straight, tall, skinny, 16 to 25 years old, but this world is full of surprises, and I seriously won't be shocked if this person speaking is a short, fat, black, gay boy. Anyone can be behind the screen, really, but regardless of whatever kind of human species this person turns out to be, what he's saying isn't right. Excuse me for assuming a gender, not really. What he's saying isn't right. To hell with your free speech. Just because you're allowed to say whatever you want doesn't mean you can or should. Just because no one can sue or hurt you for being an asshole doesn't mean it's something to aspire to be.
Well, the idea of free speech to begin with is that you're not going to be censored for saying something that someone may not agree with. And in this instance, yes, Easy's video is pretty frustrating to sit through, and it's pretty insulting to a specific demographic of people. However, the snarky asshole nature of his personality is likely a persona. I know you're about to get into a little skit where you make fun of the idea of people being proud of their negative behavior, but even then, this could be just a specific persona for his YouTube channel. His bread and butter is covering shows, topics, and cringy stuff altogether, and bashing on SJWs. So having that personality is an appeal to that style of content, and hell, for all we know, this might not even reflect his behavior in real life. He could just be playing everything up for YouTube, who knows? My point is that you're taking a joke about a man hating his own testosterone and trying to attribute hate speech to it as if what he's saying is completely dead serious. That is not a good way to approach this subject.
10 billion points for Griffin Puff!
When Paradox expresses pride in her country's ingenuity and their plans to turn Earth into a colony where their people can live happily and prosper, the gems yell at him, tell him he's wrong, threaten him with violence, and it's all because nature and animals are really important, except when you let a small child stuff his face with them to the point he's 1 bite away from diabetes.
And let me repeat myself. I don't care for the points he made regarding the show. Forced rape, male hate, annoying characters, I do not care. If I tried hard enough, I could paint Gravity Falls as a bad show, but I'm not ready to die a horrible death just yet. What this entire video is about is to raise awareness, unlike Logan Paul, about the issue that there is a difference between criticism, free speech, and just hate. Neither of these is like the other, and please, for the love of God, do not defend the last of those three.
Oh, so this wasn't actually supposed to be a response. You don't give a shit about the actual nonsense he spewed in the video. You just want to call him out for being a meanie head, even though you directly responded to quite a few clips like a response video would've, but now... What the fuck am I even watching anymore? Well, I'm gonna defend the last of those three now because you've been
Completely wasting my fucking time.
As I said earlier, freedom of speech just means that you're able to express an opinion without being censored or silenced. So technically, he's well within his right to say all of this stuff, just as you and I are well within our right to tell him that his video is shit, even though I'm apparently the only one who has been doing that. And sure, criticism and hate are separate, which is a good thing that his video also provides criticisms of the show, why the inconsistent art styles are frustrating, the storyboard process being inefficient, and the writing process not being very good, why Steven is unbearably annoying, stuff like that. I guess that would be a pretty good example of criticism, right?
10 billion points for Griffin Puff!
To the point that he became a selfish, self-absorbed, egotistical cunt with a morbid obesity problem.
Man, this dude really hates obesity. Yeah. And what I wouldn't give to be fat. I weigh 110 pounds soaking wet. I'm on the brink of being malnourished. It ain't even funny. I most probably have an eating disorder. Do you have any idea how terrible it is to see food and not be able to eat it? You want to eat, but you just but you simply just can't.
This has been another pointless moment.
Steven Universe the character is a fat, whiny, incompetent mongoloid who's so stupid he's borderline retarded, lives in a mansion with his three progressive lesbian moms that spoil him, give him anything he wants without having to work for it, and let him do whatever he wants, to the point that he became a selfish, self-absorbed, egotistical cunt with a morbid obesity problem. All of this within a world where he magically develops new superpowers whenever he needs them, and everything around him only exists as a metaphor for why everything he believes in, and by extension the show's staff believe in, is absolutely right, and anyone who disagrees with them are a bunch of space Nazis even if they're objectively better than him in every single way imaginable. And that's the big hook. That's the twist. That's why shitty people make a shitty show that other shitty people are ready to kill each other over. Steven Universe fans love Steven Universe because the average Steven Universe fan is a dumb, 400-pound, spoiled college feminist living in her nice upper-class house with her cuckold dad and two lesbian moms. They love the show because they identify with Steven Universe. They love the show because they are Steven Universe.
Dear God, I pray for you. But anyway, if you're looking for a lighthearted video to watch after this one to rinse out your brain with, just take a short stroll down my channel. I guarantee you'll find something you like.
Well, the video is basically over at this point, but I want to swing over to what Easy said regarding the fans. And I do get what you're going for. A lot of this is a joke. I get it, haha, it's fucking hilarious. I know that the fan base is not great. However, let's be real here. That's the average Steven Universe fan. I mean, it's not like Steven Universe is like any other fan base where the audience is comprised of many different types of people. Take me for instance, I'm a mildly overweight 23-year-old male that doesn't follow identity politics in the slightest, so I have no ties to feminism, not exactly a liberal or tied with the LGBT. I'm poor as shit and I have to work for mostly anything I want. Give a lot of them the benefit of the doubt. Many of us don't even follow the politics, we don't follow what the staff does, and many of us don't want to see the social justice freak show run by the radical faction of the Steven Universe fandom. Like you'll find in the comment section of your video, some people like the show but try their best to ignore the fans. Your points are not invalid, the fans are very frustrating, but the average fan? I would certainly not stand by that even in the slightest. Now, I feel like the flow of my videos kind of break whenever I do final thoughts since I don't feel like I always need to do them. However, in this instance, it fits perfectly, so I'm just gonna start my final thoughts by addressing Easy Peasy here. Easy, while I really did not enjoy your video, the least I can say is that your video did end up bringing some solid points against the show that were interesting to listen to, like everything regarding the writing process, the storyboards, the flow of the story, all things that are completely valid and understandable criticisms, though in other areas plenty of it is pure speculation, claims backed by very faulty or lazily picked sources, outright bullshit claims about the show being propaganda, and in clips that neither I or Virtual played talking about plot holes or unanswered questions that have been answered in the show. There are many other issues with your video, but I didn't have the energy to cover the entire thing, and simply playing very specific clips that weren't even referenced in Virtual's response would come off on my end as cherry picking and just being very selective. I don't mind the fact that you dislike the show, since I completely understand why, but your approach was extremely poor. However, Virtual, your video was just the worst considering how overall pointless it turned out to be. While Easy's had an actual point to it, yours didn't seem to have any sort of focus or reason for existing. I thought it was a response since you directly responded to certain clips, though not even remotely debunking them, and in some cases you responded with completely off-topic and irrelevant comments that are completely useless and further waste our time. Though later you say that making a response wasn't your intention and that it was an expose on people who spread hate. Well, granted, this argument on the surface is fine, and you did make some solid points that I skipped over simply because they went on for far too long and didn't relate to any of the clips being played by Easy. I still had to sit through a 22-minute video that was nothing but padding and excruciatingly long tangents. On top of that, you said that you weren't going to call him racist or sexist, though you still did it anyway. With all of this, you have a very boring video that doesn't have a point to it at all. Now, my intention is not to be mean, but when you make a video this long and you're trying to cover another person's video, you'd be better off making a direct response to it in some way. Oh my god, I'm all done here.